Okay, welcome back. I believe this is video 7 in our series of creating a real-world entity framework application. Today we're going to talk about creating the control that will actually display in a tree view a list of users that report to us and that we may want to run reports on. Before we get into that, I want to address a couple of bugs and fixes and changes I've made to the source code. We already detailed how I moved the database to the Sql Express 2012 platform from the local DB platform, and I just watch that video. It's in there, the last one I uploaded in the videos, so check it out. But what I've done is, and what you can see is that I've gone in and set the manager IDs on all of my entities that report to me. You can see that 3s point to me. My password is password1 $ with a capital P, so no worries there. And the other thing I've done is I've added 2 columns to the person, is manager and is global report viewer. So if you have gotten really creative with the way this project's put together and put this on a remote server or something, you'll want to update your MDF file, or certainly update the person table to reflect the new structure of the person table. This should be the last database update we do, unless we add some exception logger, which we may do, but that would be a table addition, not some modification. So we've got an is manager, is global report viewer, and this just tells us whether or not the person manages people, and the is global report viewer means that you could see everybody in the system's weekly reports. Now this is important because, like I said, I'm building this for my personal use, but where I happen to work, which I never know, I know some people have asked me, and I'm not going to mention where I work, but just doing that out of respect. I have managers who have people that are going to use this application who are also managers, so it allows them to peek at not only the people they manage who directly report to them, but as you can imagine, they have people that report to them who report to them, and this, as a global report viewer, will allow those division managers to drill down, and unfortunately they can drill across, but that's just, I could spend forever on security. Any developer knows that. This is good enough for what we're doing. So let's take a look at what we've done. I'm going to minimize this. There's no reason to spend any more time here. They're just booleans, bits. I'm going to minimize that. Here is our code. Let's take a look at debug, start without debugging, and we're going to take a look at what we've got in the source code as it sets today. And I'm going to log in. And there's when you fail, there's the use case, because I fat fingered the enter key. And it is password $1. And you'll see now that when you log in, you get this tree view that's got a nice picture of a person, and it's in a suit to, I don't wear suits to work, but of a manager, and then the manager's reports, they have an image that goes with them, and they're listed under the manager. Now notice when I click the plus sign, nothing happened, but if I click the actual person, I get a message box that shows me who I selected. And same with any children. Now that's obviously not going to stay in for production, but it just shows that this user control is wired to an event on the main form that we can do something. The idea being, when you click somebody down here in the actions panel, we show what you can do: view reports, edit their user information, various other things. And we'll probably put a main menu up here at some point too. But we can resize. We can do things like that if we want to. Resize both on the horizontal and vertical planes. So let's close out of this and let's take a look at how we do that. Well, it's not magic. What we've got on our main form is we've got just some split panels, and then we've got a I don't like the way the designer has drawn itself. I'm going to close all these out and reopen them. Sometimes that happens in Visual Studio. I'm going to go in here into my Windows Form project. There, see how it's redrawn it nicely? That's Visual Studio, still not without bugs, or undocumented features as we call them. It's got panels in here. I've got a user control here, which if we look at my toolbox up top, you can see it's called My People Control. And I've organized and added a folder to the Windows Form project called User Controls, where I define that My User Control. Now, it's important to note on the My User Control, you say, well, why didn't you just drop a Treeview in there? Well, I could have, but the point here is to create an application that is modular to where you can modify it. If the display here starts acting wonky, then we know go look at the My People control, because that's where everything happens for that user control. Now, in order for us to do anything on the main form, we had to expose some kind of event so that it fires and wire that event up to the main form, but that's okay. That's easy to do. You simply click on the user control, and I guess I should note, if I wanted to add it, I could simply drag it on there. I'm not going to. I can click and drag. That's how I did it. I clicked and dragged it in there, and I set its dock to fill that screen up. Set its dock to, let me click on it. I can tell I haven't because I don't see a dock. I set its dock. Oh, I guess it did drag it on there. So let's get rid of that thing. How about that? Set its dock to fill, and it fills up my little panel here. That way, that's why you saw it resize when I drug it. So let us go take a look at the events. You remember I said I had to fire some kind of event, and it just so happens we define the event in the control, and it is called person selected. And in order to wire it up, we just double clicked the person selected. It created this empty stub for us, and I added the message box.show. Now you'll notice that a normal event will have an event args e, right? Well, look here right away. We've got a user controls.person selected args e. That means that I've done some trickery back in the user control, and I have extended the event args class to do and include information I care about. Specifically, if we looked at it, the event args class contains a person data transfer object, which we defined in our BLL. I can right click here and go to definition, and we'll see that it actually took us to the user control, and that it's a class which extends the event args class with one property, selected person. Not magic. Pretty easy stuff. So let's take a look at the user control, because that's what we're here to talk about. It is a user control, and it's got a tree view on it. I just drug a tree view on it, and I set the tree view, named it TV people. I set its dock to fill, right? Dock to fill, so it fills this user control. And I could have resized that user control to whatever I wanted. I just picked something that was aesthetically pleasing to me, because remember, when we drag this user control onto some containing control, being the parent form, in this case the panel, we set its dock there, right? So it's automatically going to resize that user control. So you want to keep that in mind. The other thing you want to keep in mind when you're creating user controls is that they fire events even in the designer. So if you drag a user control onto a form in the designer, it fires at design time the load and constructor events for those user controls which you define. So anything, if you reach out and touch your database, if you do anything in your user control, you want to make sure that you don't do it if you're in design mode. And I've actually shown you how to do that here in the user control, which we'll get to. But the other things worth noting on the designer is we have an image list, and I've included the images for you. They're 16 by 16 images. That's the images you saw to the left of the names. And I've set the tree views images property. If you come down here to the tree view images, I've set the tree view images property to the image list. See its image list? Set to images. Its image index is 0. That doesn't really affect us because we're doing that in code, and you'll see where I do that. But the other thing, the selected image index is important because when you click on a person, it changes, you noticed in the GUI, the image that was showing. So you just select one of your images after you've set the image list and select the image that you want to show. You know, I could have gotten really creative and put a green checkbox in there and said, look, when you click a person, show a green checkbox next to him. It's a good idea. I may actually do that, but not for the purposes of this video. And then there's this TMR load data. And you say, well, Dean, that's kind of strange. Why do you have a timer on a user control? Well, this is a really old, tried and true way of getting this thing to load its data after it shows itself on the form. Now, it looks instant, but anyone that's programmed for a while will tell you that if you reach out over a web service or WCF or something, that it's not really instant. It takes a second to reach out there to that service, get the data, and show it. You could use threading.sleep to simulate it, and in this code, you're certainly welcome to do that, simulate a delay in the data call, and then it will show up on the main form. But what this timer does is in the and let's just take a look at the code. Actually, let's go into the code, view code. Notice I keep things regionalized just like I always do. Event args. I'm really picky about keeping my code neat. So let's go to constructors and load events. Here is the load event. Remember, I said it loads when you drag it on the form, and there is this design mode that is exposed by every control in every form, and what it does is it tells Visual Studio whether or not, hey, I'm in design mode, don't fire or don't start this timer. So this is a great way if you're reaching out to a database and you say, when this control loads, I want to go out and get all the people, which is what we want to do. When this control loads, we want to go out and get all the people that the person signing in manages, and if they don't manage anyone, we just want to basically set the person in the list to them. And we've already loaded them, haven't we? Because when they logged in, we set the identity on that main form to them. So there's no reason to reach out to the database again. And we'll see how we do that. So we're going to start the timer if we're not in design mode. Well, where's that at? Well, here's my on control events. The fill Treeview. Here's my timer. When the timer fires, it's only ever going to fire once in its life. And I say, look, if somebody's logged in, and you say, well, Dean, that's bizarre. Why would you do that? Well, if we think about the way the application works, the main form actually is the one that the program.cs, if you look at it, instantiates. And the way that works is the main form will instantiate every control on its surface, including this one. So when it runs, it's going to say, okay, I'm not in design mode, instantiate myself, and the timer is going to start. Well, the 1 second timer is going to fire while the login form is showing, potentially and likely at 1 second intervals, before the person logs in, right? So basically what this does is it puts this control virtually to sleep until the person logs in. And as soon as the person logs in, that identity object on the main form, which you see me, remember I said that neat trick where we can go main form.instance and reference public variables and properties on it. When it sees that identity get set, then it stops the timer so it doesn't ever fire again, and it fills the tree view. So this is a really neat trick to get this user control to wait for you to log in. And if you fail to log in, it will never reach out to the database and you won't get unhandled null exceptions. So it works out really nice for everyone involved. So let's say we are logged in, everything's good. How do we fill this tree view? Well, since our middleware is written very API-ish, you'll remember we have a function in the middleware called get the people I manage in a sense. And that's what we're calling here. And we go to a function, we've got a variable people, which is really a list of data transfer objects of people type. If we go to it and go to its definition, we'll see that we declare a list of person DTO objects, which is from our properties in this user control, the results are, because we're going to query them later when they select someone in the tree view. And we're going to try catch in case every time you reach out to the BLL, remember it's probably a good idea to wrap that thing in a try catch, because the BLL more times than not reaches out to the database. So we put a try catch in here, and I don't like messagebox.show, but this is a training video and we're going to show you the exceptions if there are any. Here you would really log it to the database and potentially show the exception. It's just kind of up to you. But we're going to go in here and we're going to check. Remember I said we already know who's logged in. That's a data transfer objects. It's a person DTO. We're going to see if they're a manager. If they're a manager, then we know we need to load the Treeview a little different because there's going to be people under them. So we'll show them first and then add a bunch of children to that Treeview. If they're not a manager, we're just going to add to the list the identity. And we're not going to do any kind of strange loading. And you say, well, Dean, why did you reach out to the database again? Because earlier you said there was no reason to reach out to the database again. I did this in case someone else updated their data. At first I thought, I'll just add the identity. But in reality, I thought, well, since we are on the LAN, it's not really a big database hit to hit one person. So let's just go out there and refresh, grab their data, and stick them in here. Because something could have changed. It's highly unlikely, but it sticks to the same pattern as when we get a whole bunch of people. We all make sacrifices. Not perfect, but it's good enough. And so we add them to the list. And once that data reach out is done, we come back to the fill Treeview, and we're going to call the begin update so we don't fire a bunch of events. We're going to clear the nodes in the Treeview if there are any. We're going to set the first run to true. And what that means is that we are about to add ourselves to the Treeview. We haven't added anything to the Treeview yet. And we're gonna enumerate through the list of people, or iterate through the list of people, and we're gonna say, look, if it's the first run, meaning we don't have anybody in the Treeview, we want to add ourselves first. We're going to add ourselves first, because we know the first person in the list is us. Always going to be us. Otherwise, we're going to go through and add non-managed people. And you say, whoa, what if they're not a manager? Well, the beautiful thing about this is if they're not a manager, there's nobody here. It'll never fire a second time. So you're good to go. You don't have to handle the manager logic again. It's taken care of by the good design of this function. And then we end the update on the Treeview people, and again, events and things, notifications start flowing as they should. And as they should, that's a bad way to say it. As we expect them to. Okay, that explains that. Now, the events. Let's take a look at the events. Remember, we have that person selected event. Well, in order to expose an event to the world, you have to expose a property of a type event, and then you have to expose the handler and if you want to define a custom return property in the event args, you have to specify it here and the name of the event. This person selected, you'll note on the main form, if I look here and I look at the people control, and I go down here and I say the person selected, look at that. Person selected, person selected. So I wired it up. And then you simply expose a function here that says, look, declare that handler, and then check to see if it's, or not declare, but point to the handler, see if it's null, because if they haven't wired it up on the main form, meaning they haven't double clicked it and consumed it, then it's null. So we don't want to fire it. But if they are consuming the event, fire the event and send the args. And you say, well, how do we do that? Well, when someone clicks in that tree view, when they select a person, we are going to call this function, right? When someone clicks someone in the preview, or in the tree view, we're going to call this function, and we're going to send it a new person selected args, which, as you remember, contains a person data transfer object. We're just going to pass it in, and this will handle everything for us. It keeps our functions really short. So let's go look at and you can do it here. Click on the tree view, go to its events. See this after select? This fires after you select someone in the tree view, not when you hit the plus sign. That's why when I hit the plus sign, that message box didn't pop up. So if I double click this, it created the stub first. There wasn't anything in here, but I went in here and just, for the sake of readability, I said tree node equals e.node, because they did the same thing we did. The event args, they overloaded the event args and they sent a node. So we said tree node t equals the node that comes through that was selected. And we say, look, the selected person is equal to the person in the list that we filled from the database whose ID matches, and this is where I hate tree views. The name, which doesn't make sense, but the name is actually your key value. The name of that node, single or default. So what this will return is it will return either the person from the list whose primary key in the database matches the one that you selected in the list, or if it doesn't find them, it will return a null. And so we say if it's not null, call that function and send in a new person selected event args, which there's our DTO. Because when we query this list of person DTO objects, what's it going to return? It's going to return a person DTO, right? Pretty cool. So here we go. We've got a person DTO. Good to go. We're ready to rock and roll. So here we go. We call a function. It's going to check. It's going to what? It's going to reach out and it's going to say, hey, have you consumed me? Yep, you've consumed me. I'm happy. You're happy. We all got what we want. It's a good negotiation. I'm going to fire the event. It fires on the main form, unless we're in design view, remember. It fires on the main form and says, pass the person who was selected. What you do with that person, this control could care less. It's not the job of this control. And that's something that's really hard to explain sometimes to new programmers, is they end up with a form that does a whole bunch of stuff, or a control that does a whole bunch of stuff. Really, in the real world, your frontline programmers, your ACE programmers, are writing the new code, and your programmers in training, your future ACEs, are the ones supporting it, right? So when this gets transitioned to support, it needs to be readable. And so that's why you keep controls and you keep forms limited in their jobs. This Treeview's only job is to what? Go to the database, get a list of people, and you might have said a list of people I manage. Nope, wrong answer. Go get a list of people, and if I manage people, that list is the people I manage as well as myself. If I don't manage people, that list is just me. Put them in a tree view, and if the user happens to click on the person or a node in that tree view, pass that node the data transfer object, the person data transfer object, pass it via the event arguments to the form or the consumer in this choice, and let them do with it whatever they want to. So hopefully this helps. It's pretty straightforward. The code's already up on SVN, so just get the latest version. Don't forget to do those database updates. I have updated the model in Entity Framework for you. I've done all of that work, so you won't have any problems there. That's it. The next video will be where we wire in the actions the actions will be to view the actual reports, but the actions will be a user control too. Not going to be nearly as complex as this one, but it's going to be a user control. It's got a couple of things in it, and you click on an action, and we send up probably an enumerated list of actions, and the main form decides what to do with itself when you click one. So look for that video to come up perhaps this weekend, depends on how it goes. I happen to be on call, so I'm stuck here at home, and I just as well make videos, right? So if you're watching these videos, I'm hoping they're helping, and I do appreciate all the feedback I've got. A couple of bug reports have come back in. They've been addressed in the source code, and I thank you for that. But thanks for taking the time to watch them. Hopefully they're helping, and thanks for stopping by.